Treating hyperpigmentation naturally. So look for these ingredients. So this video is talking about hyperpigmentation and treating it with some natural ingredients in these products. So if you have age spots, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which includes acne scars or melasma, these are some products or ingredients that you can look for. Now you have to remember, when you are treating hyperpigmentation with just natural ingredients, it is going to be
a whole lot slower.
So a lot of times we are in the age where we want things instant, and so people give up. So the best results, I have read tons and tons of clinical studies, and the results are actually all over the world where people have hyperpigmentation. It's actually one of the most common skin conditions. The best results is when you combine it with a professional treatment and then you support it with home care. But if you can't do these professional treatments and you're simply looking for home care and you don't want to use hydroquinone because you can't use it or you choose not to use it, then these are some ingredients to look for. So let's get started. Hi, my name is Christy, and I have been treating clients for over 11 years with hyperpigmentation, acne, and other skin conditions. So here is my disclaimer. My disclaimer is that just because these ingredients have actually been proven in clinical studies to work, it doesn't mean that these specific ingredients will work for you, and the only way to know is to actually try it. The other thing is, when somebody uses products and say, oh, it doesn't work, and they switch from one thing to another, because you're using natural products, it does take some time to see if there are results. So if you choose, a lot of these clinical studies we're going to be talking about were combined with professional provision. So they were doing professional treatments and combining them with actual products. So if you choose not to go that route, you're going to be jumping from one product to another, is a lot of times what I have found before a client comes to me for actual treatment. So if you cannot do professional treatments, you can only do them for home care. The minimum that you have to do to see if it actually starts working is 30 days, okay? Because you're going to be using natural products and you choose not to do professional treatments, it's just going to take longer. Okay, so here we go. So first in this list is a combination of ingredients that have worked for most of my clients. Again, that's my disclaimer. It doesn't mean every single one of these is going to work for every single one of you. Okay, so that's the first one. This is based on a majority of my clients and also some clinical studies. And in the list, some of them still need further clinical studies, and I will let you know which ones those are. Okay, so the first one is soy, and I read a lot of skincare labels, and I am slowly starting to see this in a lot more products. It is a known tyrosinase inhibitor, so basically it prevents the melanosomes, and if you've been watching my hyperpigmentation series, you know that melanosomes are where melanin is created, stored, and transported to the keratinocytes to make the skin darker. So there was one clinical study that was done, this is actually the first one, where 14 out of 16 women in this clinical trial, okay, so they were a mixture of Caucasian and Hispanic women who had melasma. They applied the soy extract once a day for 3 months and saw a 12% improvement in their hyperpigmentation. The other clinical study that was done on 44 Celtic complexion men. So Celtic complexion basically means they're more on the Fitzpatrick scale of 1 and 2. They're prone to redness, they're prone to sensitivity, they're prone to rosacea, and so they were also, and when they have hyperpigmentation, because they don't have eumelanin, they have pheomelanin, and pheomelanin is more the yellowish red pigments, but then a study was done on them because they're more prone to sensitivities, and they also saw some improvement, and that was more on clarity and more like a radiance type of improvement on their skin. The next one is niacinamide, and I have a video on the 6 anti-aging benefits of niacinamide, so I'm not going to go too much into this. It is known as a antioxidant, also known as vitamin B3, and it not only helps with hyperpigmentation, but it also helps with the size or the reduction of the size of the pores, and it's also known as a tyrosinase inhibitor. So the next one is ellagic acid, and you may not see that exact ingredient in the skincare products, but if you see anything from strawberry extracts, cherry extracts, and pomegranate extracts, it's a powerful polyphenol. It's an antioxidant that is derived from nuts, certain types of berries, and certain types of trees. And what it does is it also is a tyrosinase inhibitor, and in some clinical studies have actually shown better results than arbutin and the well-known kojic acid. So there are still more further studies that need to be done, but if you do see some products in that, and I did get sent a free product sample of this enzyme peel, so I'm going to try it first to see, and then I will let you know on it. But that's something interesting that I think you're going to see more and more of as they do more clinical studies. The next one is arbutin, and I talk about this a lot because it is in the Lyra Clinical sunscreen, and I'll put the links below. It is derived from bearberry, blueberry, different types of berry extract, including some trees as well, and it is a tyrosinase inhibitor. So the next one is kojic acid. It's very well known as a skin lightener and brightener. It is a tyrosinase inhibitor, but it also is a ROS. If you've been watching my anti-aging playlist, you will know that ROS stands for reactive oxygen species, and it's basically a free radical that causes RNA, DNA damage, as well as it basically ages or breaks down collagen and elastin, and apoptosis, which is also known as cell death. So it takes those down. And kojic acid, and according to a lot of clinical studies I read, kojic acid works when it's paired with other exfoliants to increase skin penetration. So what I mean by that is not when you use just kojic acid, it's not as effective as when you use it with at least a 2.5% L-ascorbic or vitamin C percentage, as well as glycolic acid or lactic acid or some type of other exfoliant to increase skin penetration. One clinical study found that when you pair kojic acid with at least 1 to 2% hydroquinone, which is an over-the-counter formulation, along with 0.1% betamethasone valerate or a combination of all three, it actually increased the efficacy and the result of the kojic acid. And this clinical study was actually performed on 80 multi-ethnic patients with hyperpigmentation. So in addition to this, of course, the more well-known common ingredients known for lightening and brightening and anti-aging benefits is green tea, azelaic acid, and of course ascorbic acid. And so a lot of times in the skincare industry, they talk about vitamin C all the time, but and they use it interchangeably. But when you actually look at the ingredient, the most effective is L-ascorbic acid. However, there's more reactions. There's more chances of reaction in certain skin types. So a lot of times they'll use a vitamin C derivative, which may not be as effective, but it's less it doesn't cause as many reactions. So in this one clinical study using ascorbic acid, it was actually done with 29 women over 12 weeks using, you have to be careful now, so using iontophoresis. So this is one machine. There's all different types of machines out there that professionals can use. This one is a handheld one because it's much smaller, and it uses a process of iontophoresis using a positive ion dominant. So in this skincare world, if you're using a positive ion dominant, in chemistry it actually pulls in where negative pulls up, and that's a process called disincrustation. But when they used it in professional treatments using iontophoresis, they saw a significant increase. Along with, in this specific clinical study, they used, along with the professional treatments, they used it with sunscreen of SPF 30, and they used it with skincare products that had mandelic acid in it. In this one particular clinical study, over 75% of the participants actually saw a significant improvement in their hyperpigmentation. So 32, now this is another clinical study, so 32 patients saw over 25% improvement, and then another 22 patients actually saw over 50% improvement in their hyperpigmentation. So now if you are finding some of this information helpful to you before we move on, then I would really love it if you gave us a thumbs up to support this channel, letting us know that this is the type of information that you are looking for. And if you haven't subscribed to us, we would love it if you hit that subscription button as well as that notification bell to let you know when our new videos come up. So here are 3 more ingredients that have shown to improve hyperpigmentation. However, there still needs to be more clinical studies before they actually said it needed to have more peer-reviewed clinical studies before they started to really tout this as skin lightening. But it has shown some great results for hyperpigmentation. Okay, so the first one is licorice root extract. I've already seen a lot of acne and lightening products have this. There was a study that was done, and it was only on Chinese and Caucasian women. It was shown to be 16 times more effective than hydroquinone, and it was shown to be more effective on Fitzpatrick 1 through 4, or the study that was actually done on that. And if you don't know what the Fitzpatrick scale is, then go back and check our video for hyperpigmentation and your skin type, and you will be more familiar to find out what particular category that you are in, so you can find out how your skin may be likely to respond to some of these products. Okay, so the next one is lignin peroxidase, and that is an extract that is derived from tree fungus. And you may not actually see this actual name. What you may see is, shiitake mushroom extract, or maitake mushroom extract, or oyster mushroom extract, and I talk a lot about that. They do have a lot of antioxidant properties. Some of them have high amount of humectant properties, so bringing moisture to the air, and it has also been shown as a tyrosinase inhibitor. And actually one of the eye products that I am using, so I do have a little bit of hyperpigmentation that started to form here, and I do see some breakup of that, and like I mentioned in my other video, I am still using it to see how well it works. So that's another one. And according to one clinical study, it not only, like I had mentioned before, not only shows promising results in treating hyperpigmentation, but it also increases clarity and radiance on your skin. So it has multi-benefits, but again, they still have to do further clinical testing on this product. But already, again, skincare products are already using this extract in a lot of their products. Okay, so the next one is a spice, and you're starting to see this everywhere as well, and this is turmeric. The active ingredient in turmeric that helps with hyperpigmentation is curcumin, and it is a hydrophobic polyphenol that is found in the yellow pigment. And in vivo studies have shown, so in vivo basically means in vitro, in a vial. Tests have shown that it actually increases apoptosis, which is cell death, in melanoma cells. So there's been 2 clinical studies that have shown promising results in not only, again, hyperpigmentation, but helping with fine lines and wrinkles. So there was one clinical study that was done. It was a split-face study among Caucasian women using a cream, a niacinamide cream with the turmeric extract versus just using it with the niacinamide alone. And they showed that there was vast improvement when used with a niacinamide cream. But this was more, even though they wanted to just see what it would do to the skin, it showed improvement in fine lines and wrinkles, and it was only done with just Caucasian women. In another area, it actually showed improvement. This was done on Chinese women. It didn't say how many, but it showed improvement in their hyperpigmentation by 14.16%. And again, all these studies that I'm telling you about, the links will be in my blog, and I'll put the link to my blog. The other one is allicin, and obviously, like the name sounds like, it is derived from the aloe vera plant. It showed some promising results of brightening and lightening results with hyperpigmentation when paired with arbutin, which I talk about when I last talked about it, versus it being alone. Again, more clinical studies need to be shown with allicin, so I tried to look for more information on that. I thought I would mention it, but compared to the other ingredients that I'm telling you, the other ones showed a lot more clinical study results than this one. The other one is mulberry, and this is actually comes from the leaves of mulberry trees, and it's also known as a tyrosinase inhibitor. And one interesting thing that I found out about it is in East Asia, they actually use those mulberry leaves to feed silkworms, and I thought it was interesting because in this rice powder that I use, it actually has silk powder in there, 18 amino acids from the silk powder. So I was kind of wondering, I wonder if that helps with the rice powder, which is the phytic acids for lightening and brightening agents. I'm not really sure. That's kind of like a side note, but that's one of the other ingredients is mulberry extract. Okay, so those of you who are on my email list, I will go ahead and email you the list of some of those things so you have that to refer to. So remember again, makeup is an art and skincare is a science. See you next week.